Thomas and Percy enjoy working in the docks. They like the sea air and the sound of the gulls. But one day, the friends were feeling hot and bothered. A crane was causing trouble. His name is Cranky, and this was his first day at the docks.
Maybe first day at the docks that we've ever known him from. Partly because this is not Tidmouth or Knapford Harbor. Nope, this is a new area on the island known as Brendam Docks. And how's that Alec Baldwin narration going? He may not be the cool Sir Ringo Starr or gruffy George Carlin, but his voice is certainly much more intense and distinct than the others. Now as for Cranky, his name spoke for himself. According to the towering crane, Thomas and Percy were considered bugs because they didn't do what he wanted.
No crane has ever complained before. Well, I'm complaining now. And Cranky banged his load down on the quayside. Later, the two engines met Gordon and James and told them about Cranky.
Cranes are airy-fairy things. They need a lot of attention, like me, in fact.
Okay, is this how Gordon's going to sound? I mean, I just don't know. I never expected Gordon to sound so bloaty. It's only because Starr and Carlin have made Gordon sound like a leaner and pompous figure. Not like this. And of course, because Gordon and James are two of the three drama queens of Sodor, they didn't sympathize with the tank engines. No, they sided with Cranky instead. What treason! Cranky isn't even steam-powered.
When Cranky heard that the big engines agreed with him, he grew bossier still. Come on, push those freight cars closer to me. But Percy was too upset to concentrate and pushed the freight cars too far. Poor Percy.
Yeah, well, I'm not buying that it's Cranky himself that's dropping his cargo in the wrong spots. The blame is on his operator because, again, no vehicle or piece of equipment can run themselves. And these kinds of shenanigans went on day in and day out. Sadly, Thomas and Percy couldn't do anything to stop Cranky's behavior either. Worst of all was when Top Hat learned of all the problems going on.
This mix-up caused confusion and delay. Sir Topham Hatt was most upset. Thomas and Percy, this new crane has an important job to do. I have heard that you have not been helping him today. You will go to your sheds and consider how you will improve yourselves tomorrow.
That sucks. There's nothing worse than getting into trouble for something that wasn't even caused by you. I think Cranky should have been named something else, like Baldhard or Fognozzle. What, you thought I was going to give him an actual bad name that made sense? Nah, that would be too predictable. Just like the storm that started raging on the island out of nowhere.
Cranky and the engines were trapped at the docks. We're sure to be safe in this shed, said Duck. But he was wrong. The engines had no idea they were about to be put in great danger by an old tramp steamer.
That musical tune is a different sound. Now, I wouldn't say that it's an actual theme, but it's not the old stormy weather music from prior seasons. But why were the engines trapped there to begin with? You mean to tell me this storm showed up in a second and no one could leave? Even so, to Duck's comment, that's a crappy shed. It doesn't even have walls, so I don't know how safe that structure really is. Being that that ship just mentioned was already running aground thanks to no helpful lighthouse in sight.
Ah! Help! Called the engines from inside the shed. I can't!
There are two things we need to mention right now. First, that ship running aground and ramming the shed was quite a scene. Very few scenes this energetic have been shown at all. Second, what narrator has used his vocals like that in this show? Nobody has ever wailed on his vocal cords like Alec Baldwin. Anyway, after all the destruction had subsided, Top Hat arrived on scene to see if anything was still intact.
Thomas and Percy will help you, he called to Cranky. And then you can help the engines. Oh, please hurry, cried Cranky, and tell them I'm sorry I was rude to them. So it was you, murmured Sir Topham Hatt. I owe those engines an apology.
At least Cranky admitted to that, although the reason isn't clear. Was it because he felt Thomas and Percy wouldn't help him? Or was it something else? And I'm not even sure what exactly two tank engines could do to help reinstall Cranky back upright. I would think that would be done by the use of other cranes. You know, like the two that were featured in Season 1, maybe? The breakdown train? However, once he was back up, he started with his apology, only to almost slip and call them bugs.
Small engines, thank you. I'll never be rude again. However, you two mites are in my way, so move over! Pa, said Percy, he's back to bugging us. Don't move! You're still attached to Cranky! But it was too late. Cranky still looks down on the two little engines. But ever since that stormy night, he never calls them bugs or mites, because he knows they might bite back.
Shows him. Okay, so several things that are noticeable in the start of this series have already been touched, but I'll skim over them anyway. Primarily, this story was more interesting than anything else. The lesson learned here was about how abusing others can lead to your own downfall in some ways. Cranky wasn't experiencing a Gordonism per se, because him toppling over was not because of him, unless you consider karma. Excluding that, it was another random accident that just so happened to knock over the bossy crane, which in the end made him realize his little bugs were his biggest heroes. Cranky himself is legitimately the first talking crane on the show, and he's quite a piece of work, no pun intended. His attitude is cranky for sure, but thankfully softened after understanding his mistake. I would also say Thomas and Percy learned from this experience too, and that would be learning patience with thick-headed coworkers. Not everyone will like the usual way of doing things. Now, as for narrator concerns, Alec Baldwin has immediately demonstrated his capability of taking on this show with this episode alone. Although I still can't get over that goofy Gordon voice of his. I'm curious as to how he'll voice the rest of the engines. Music wasn't all that varying this time, but we still have a ways to go. The only recognizable theme played this time was the Skarloey Railway theme as Cranky toys with his useless bugs. There probably could have been better music to use, but it suits it. The only other cue worth mentioning was the danger theme as the ship runs aground. Lastly, for visuals, only two places were shown. Tidmouth Sheds was revisited, but only for the rainy winds and thunder. The rest of the setting took place at the newly established Brendam Docks, which in all honesty doesn't look a whole lot different from Knapford or Tidmouth Harbor. Hopefully we'll get more angles to see it at. Next episode is Horrid Lorry. Thanks for watching.